It's time to stop feeling guilty for playing games. Here's why. It might be 2018, but games still aren't viewed in the same light as other forms of media. Sure, they're successful on a global scale, but there's still something about games that's looked down upon compared to a good book, watching a movie, or even binging on a TV series. While those are, of course, wonderful things, there's no reason that video games can't be a part of your healthy media-consuming lifestyle. With Fortnite grabbing headlines for all the wrong reasons, it's important to define that not only are games worthy of your time, they're psychologically proven to be very good things indeed. Yes, with real studies, not just me plugging Matt into a heart monitor and making him play Yakuza. Well, maybe you don't already, in which case feel free to stay for the lols, but here are 5 reasons you should stop feeling guilty for playing games. It would be easy to say that when it comes to how we feel about games, happy games will make us happy, and sad games, in turn, make us sad. But it turns out that playing, regardless of content, is nearly always good for our brain.
To the lab! Ow! Oh, nope, I'm fine.
In the not-so-pithily titled This Drives Me Nuts, How Gaming Technologies Can Elicit Positive Experiences by Means of Negative Emotions, Stefano Traberti from the University of Milan explains that just experiencing a game induces a positive emotional state. Maybe that's why we made a whole video about just that. While on the surface, it might look like you're just sitting with a keyboard and mouse and not wandering a museum, there's a complex set of stimuli making their way into your head when you play. 4 factors make up your experience of games. The narrative, so feeling character emotions, the gameplay itself as you lose another Fortnite victory royale or level up in Assassin's Creed Origins, the simulation of real activity as you build, shoot or puzzle your way through, and finally, the art experience, so how you aesthetically experience the game. These 4 factors all combine to make a cocktail of positive emotions. If you've ever wondered why you're so keen to upload your photo mode screens from No Man's Sky, it's a lot like your holiday pictures. You want to take a slice of all those feelings, but all you're left with is the comparatively emotionally flat image. It's lovely to look at, but the game is actually giving you so much more on an individual, experiential level. Traberti references game designer Jane McGonigal, who in her book Reality is Broken says that games don't just deliver simple pleasurable experiences, but exceptionally complex and varied positive emotions. She goes further, saying that games offer up experiences that reality just can't, and it makes sense that these worlds that have been built to make us happy can offer up feels that reality never could. McGonigal even references the Italian term fiero, which is the feeling of intense pride when you overcome a huge obstacle. It's no wonder then that completing a boss fight or reaching platforming victory feels like far more than just pressing buttons. It's because, in your brain, it is. You might think that you load up a game to escape the frustrations and stresses of the day, and studies have proven that some types of games do relieve anxiety, but it turns out that games themselves have actually already taught you plenty about managing negative emotions. An American psychologist paper called The Benefits of Video Games outlines the way that games provide learnings that help you in day-to-day life, whether you know it or not. Unlike spending time with a book or movie, your input and choice in games is training your brain to deal with threats and constantly moving goals. Whether that's in the shape of juggling new dish demands in Overcooked, no, add another onion, or choosing who to chow down on in Vampire, you're constantly having to assess your own emotional responses to these ever-changing challenges. The interactivity of games teaches your brain how to deal with risk, anxiety, and frustration. When was the last time a Marvel movie asked you to save the world?
Hulk, you have to remember to look before you leap.
You'd think that constantly changing the rules would be frustrating rather than enjoyable, but when it's done right, games ask you to switch strategies and you learn from it. If you decide to add an Alt-Titan to your Destiny save, you've got a whole new set of abilities to think about, but games have trained you to deal with these fresh systems. Your brain is constantly learning and, unlearning, which basically means that when the zombie apocalypse comes, you'll be the first to call. It's also worth noting here that games let you play as your ideal self. Our in-game avatars tend to reflect ourselves or who we want to be, and whether your Sims dog looks like your own, or, not, everything you create is an extension of your ideal self. We're constantly motivated to be the best version of ourselves that we can be. What could be more positive than that? Let's face it, you feel less guilty about playing some games than others. Dear Esther, Firewatch, Gone Home. Like interactive movies, these games have a narrative gravitas attached to them that means you'll probably feel a little better about spending some time in their worlds. But what if you spend hours playing The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth, relentlessly journeying into the basement for yet another procedurally generated run? Like, you know, me. Well, here's the good news. Despite what's known as the paradox of failure, the not wanting to fail yet pursuing a task in which you will inevitably fail, it turns out that we're suckers for heading into procedurally generated dungeons of endless death. In his paper, The Art of Failure, The Pain of Playing Video Games, Jesper Juhl explains that instead of avoiding games where we repeatedly die, we're attracted to the concept of repeated failure, and it's a good thing. The important thing to differentiate here is that while technically none of us like failure, games that mean we're the problem are the ones that are attractive. Frustrating, badly built, unfair games aren't what keep us coming back. It's the perfectly constructed prisons of Isaac, Enter the Gungeon and Cuphead that keep us playing and dying. No loading times and well-positioned save points are the key to the art of failure, but loving it. Unlike other mediums, Juhl says that games set us up for failure and let us deal with attempting the seeming impossibility of completion. Celeste might act like it hates you, but every level of this pixelated platformer is a miniature slice of elation as you triumph against the odds. There's no need to feel guilty here. You might look like you're dying over and over, well, because you are, but inside you're dealing with risk, anxiety and stress, and ultimately triumphing. That's why you keep coming back. No single death is wasted in your quest to become a better human. Well, maybe that one. So here's another guilt trip. What are you doing playing games when you could be outside seeing people and socialising? What are you doing staring at a screen when you could be staring at other people? Can't you go outside? You're too pale. Okay, in this case, the subtext might have rapidly become the text. Well, here's where you can forget about that guilt. In the previously mentioned The Benefits of Playing Video Games, it's discussed that while 20 years ago gamers were traditionally less social in nature, the average gamer now loves to play with friends. Over 70% of us play with other humans, and games promote good relationships with both NPCs and fellow players that spills over into real life. Just like managing risk and reward, relationships in games are vital, and that means rapidly learning the right social skills and cooperating and working together when necessary. One study, led by Douglas A. Gentile in 2009, concluded that playing pro-social games led to casual short-term helping behaviours in children. Kids who played these games at the beginning of the school year were more likely to exhibit helpful behaviours later on that same year. So it turns out that playing new games is a good thing, but what about the even guiltier pleasure of replaying your favourites? We all have games we love returning to, but when there's a giant teetering pile of shame and the rest of life to deal with, it's definitely harder to justify jumping back into Stardew Valley for some quality farming time. It's not you, chickens, it's me. But returning to the farm is a good thing. Going back to those positive emotional states from earlier, if you found a game that makes you even happier than others, stick with it. The Benefits of Video Games cites Fredrickson's broaden and build theory of positive emotions, which basically says that they're absolutely crucial for your well-being and health. It might look like you're just watering the plants again, but mentally you're promoting your creativity and happiness levels. And it's not just happiness levels that you have to consider. There have been significant studies that have proven that FPS games improve cognitive abilities. Keeping in with your Destiny practice means faster and more accurate attention allocation and enhanced mental rotation abilities. You might be wondering Destiny's EDZ to feel its comforting presence and the regular grind of public events, but the way your brain works while you're playing it is keeping your reaction times in tip-top shape. It's important to say you shouldn't have to justify any of your gaming habits, but it's always nice that we can. Games make us happy, train our brains, bring us together, and make it easier to deal with negativity in the real world. What more could you possibly want? Well, that's it for all the reasons you shouldn't feel guilty about playing games. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, drop us a like if you enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to Logitech G for more videos just like this one.